Okay. My name is Evyn Bodart, and this is my speech. Alright. Isn't it just so nice that you can get a Happy Meal from good old McDonald's and, if you're feeling a little full, can just throw it in your kitchen and pull it out half a year later to enjoy, untouched by bacteria and mold? A story investigated by CBS News concluded that you can, in fact, stash your sandwich for up to 6 months, retrieve it just to look almost identical to how you left it. Doesn't that just put the happy in Happy Meal? We all have foods that we've come to love. We all have our staples that we crave after a long day. Everyone has that food that just hits the spot. For me, I love a Happy Meal every once in a while. I can also put away a nice pack of Pop-Tarts now and then. Gatorade, the University of Florida's Pride and Joy, is also a staple for when I'm feeling under the weather and need a little boost. And while some of the foods I just listed are family favorites, it is time for me to shed some light on the realities of these seemingly innocent products. I will begin by identifying the root of the problem, the FDA's loose standards. Then I will give you some examples of some foods you may not have thought were unsafe. Lastly, I will explore what is in store for the future of the food industry. Allow me to start off by identifying some ingredients that are allowed here, but not everywhere else. You may be asking yourself, the FDA has been put in place to regulate food and drugs, so how could these dangerous goods still be put on the market? Well, there is more to the process than one may think. It is easy to jump on the FDA for not being more present, but there is a reason behind the madness. According to NPR.com, companies have added thousands of ingredients to foods with little to no government insight. That's thanks to a loophole in a decades-old law that allows them to deem an additive to be generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, without the US Food and Drug Administration's blessing or even its knowledge. This means that companies are being enabled when engaging in sneaky behaviors. Surprisingly, the loophole had good intentions when it started out. Some foods that are generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, are common items such as salt or vinegar. That is what the rule was intended for. However, the law that put these practices in place was old, and as time passed, the food industry invented more and more chemicals they labeled as GRAS. And to make things worse, companies have been rewarded with the liberty to decide what is and is not GRAS independently. Rather than going through the painstaking FDA-led review process to ensure that their new ingredients are safe, food companies can determine on their own that substances are generally recognized as safe. They can then ask the FDA to review their evaluation, if they wish, or they can take their ingredients straight to the market without ever informing the agency, according to NPR.com. So, of course, the goal of a business is to make money. Waiting around for the FDA to review your company's new ingredients takes time, and in this fast-paced world, time is money. So, if you were the CEO, and if it were up to you to thoroughly evaluate your product to ensure the health of your consumers, that may take up to months or years. Or you could push it through the chain as fast as possible in order to make the most money as possible. Which would you choose? Now that we have identified the issue, let's dive deeper into some of the problematic foods and their chemicals. The chemicals I have warned you about aren't just in obscure foods, that are far and few in between. They are more prevalent than one may think. For example, this is a pack of Skittles, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. So according to a website, when consumers are tasting the rainbow of this popular candy, they are also ingesting food dyes Yellow 5, Yellow 6, and Red 40, which is on the back, you can read it. These dyes have been known to have adverse effects on young children. They are banned in foods for infants in the European Union, and foods that contain the dyes must carry a warning label. Norway and Austria banned them completely, according to ChicagoTribune.com. The color dyes have been associated with hyperactivity in kids as well as allergies. Not to mention the ingredient titanium dioxide, used to make colors appear brighter and more solid. This has been shown to cause tumors in rats, according to MediaFeed.org. Delicious. So sadly, other countries are letting their kids miss out on the hyperactive ingredients that we readily give to our kids. We need to wake up and read the label. The Chicago Tribune continues to say, chicken produced in the US gets washed in chlorine to reduce its risk of spreading diseases and illnesses such as salmonella. This practice is banned in the UK and the EU because it promotes unsanitary farming practices. The EU has banned the American chicken since 1997 because of this. Chlorine is the same chemical used in pools to keep them free of bacteria and algae. Issue number 1, chlorine should not be for human consumption. Issue number 2, why should unsanitary production of farming practices be confirmed with the washing of chicken with chlorine? That just screams that there's something wrong. How disgusting does it have to be for products to get cleaned with chlorine and then get put on the market? There is no reason they should have to do that. If they would just make it a priority to keep each step in production lines as sanitary as it could be, who knows what else we haven't discovered yet? Maybe we'd rather not even know. A great thing about the US is they like to be as efficient as possible when manufacturing their products, often at the cost of the consumers. Now that we have exposed some common foods that one may have previously not have thought twice about being on the market, let's investigate the future of food safety in the US. People are demanding change. You should too. In 2010, CNN Health did a story on a petition brought against the FDA for letting all of the previously discussed slide. The petition calls out the FDA for allowing the loophole put in place more than 60 years ago and demands them to do better to protect the American people. Thousands of chemicals have been produced since the FDA was first introduced. The FDA never considers the overall effects of these 10,000 chemicals on people's health, which is what Congress was after. More often than not, the companies are left to decide if their chemicals are safe at their own discretion, as we discussed earlier. This petition is calling for the issue to be fixed. Chemicals have countless effects, some of which don't show themselves for years, mainly because they are long-term effects. Some may be more apparent than others. Nevertheless, they will affect people's lives and need to be thoroughly evaluated before being put out to the trusting public. An Environmental Defense Fund analysis of public records found that in the last 23 years, just under 900 gross proposals have been voluntarily submitted by companies, Nelther said. A closer review of those 900 found only one company had considered the cumulative effect of different chemicals in the body. And then they continued to state, we've documented cases where the company has gone ahead and used the chemical, despite the withdrawal in the face of an agency concern, because the company was convinced it was still safe. That just goes to show you how companies don't care about their valued customers. Maybe 1/900th of them, which is less than 1%. The truth is, they don't care about us. They care about the money. And until we all do something about it, it's looking like it's gonna stay that way. So what can we do about it? Look into the labels of the things you're eating, into the things that your children are eating. Find out what this gibberish is and find out what it does to you. Research it for yourself. Call companies out. Petitioning against the FDA is just the beginning. The companies are next. We need to be advocates for change. We need to stop consuming the very thing that's consuming us. We need to stop supporting the toxic cycle by breaking it. So today, we learned some things you may not have previously known about the US's food industry. Surprisingly and sadly dark, but true. First, we learned that the FDA does not necessarily do the job we thought it did in protecting Americans from dangerous foods. Secondly, we looked into some specific foods that you've probably never thought about twice, food that you've been eating for your entire life. Finally, we talked about what's in the future for the FDA and some ways to change the cycle. At the beginning of my speech, I mentioned some seemingly innocent famous treats. Do you still think Happy Meals are happy, and do you still want to taste the rainbow?